Her soon-to-be mother-in-law demanded a prenup, unaware that Emily's father had a fortune hidden in plain sight. Hello and welcome back. Be sure to subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love hearing your stories. Emily had never stepped foot inside anything close to a mansion. Raised in a modest apartment filled with sunlight and the scent of brewed coffee, her world had always been simple. So when her fiancé, Ryan, led her by the hand through the towering glass doors of the Harrow family estate, it felt like entering a dream that wasn't hers. She felt misplaced, like a tourist in someone else's world. But love gave her the strength to keep walking. Clutching Ryan's hand, she smiled at the elegantly dressed guests gathered beneath the crystal chandelier and whispered to herself, "This is my life now. I belong here." The engagement party glittered with golden decor and polite applause. Uniformed servers carried silver trays of bite-sized treats while guests studied Emily with thinly veiled judgment, their eyes drifting to her modest silver ring. She wore a soft blue dress, lovely, but clearly understated for the occasion. Still, she didn't care. Her gaze found her father, Mr. Turner, standing off to the side, quiet and composed, his eyes warm with pride. For a moment, everything felt right. Until Margaret arrived. Ryan's mother, Margaret Harrow, swept into the foyer like royalty entering a court. Draped in dark velvet and dazzling diamonds, her elegance was as sharp as her stare. She moved with the confidence of someone used to ruling rooms, and people. Spotting Emily, Margaret's lips curved into a practiced smile. "Emily, darling," she said, her voice smooth and cool, "may I have a word with you in private?" Ryan caught the tension and opened his mouth, but Margaret cut in before he could object. "It's just a quick conversation, Ryan. We're family, aren't we?" Her tone was firm, unchallengeable. Emily nodded, trying to steady her nerves. "Of course, Mrs. Harrow." Margaret led her to the study, shutting the door with a quiet finality. The room was still except for the rhythmic ticking of a clock above the fireplace. Turning to face Emily, Margaret's smile faded like a curtain dropping. "I'll get straight to it," she said. "Everything our family owns was built with careful planning and hard work. We don't take unnecessary risks, especially not with marriage." Emily's stomach tightened. "What are you saying?" "I need you to sign a prenuptial agreement," Margaret said plainly. "Before the wedding." Emily froze. "A prenup?" Ryan never said. "Of course not," Margaret interrupted. "He trusts too easily. I can't let that ruin everything we've built." She stepped closer, her gaze icy. "This is nothing personal. Just business. If the marriage ends, you walk away with nothing. No assets, no shares, no financial support. It's simply a safeguard." Emily felt her pulse race. "I love Ryan. I'm not marrying him for money." Margaret's smile returned, razor-edged this time. "That's what they all say." She handed Emily an envelope. "You have until tomorrow morning. If you refuse, I'll cancel the wedding myself." Emily's head spun. "Does Ryan know about this?" "He trusts me to handle the details," Margaret replied. "It's better if this stays between us. Quiet. No drama. I'm sure your father will understand." With that, she turned back toward the door. "That's all." Emily stepped out of the study, hands trembling. She scanned the room until she saw her father again, still by the window, sipping a glass of water. His expression softened when their eyes met. "You okay, Em?" he asked gently. She forced a shaky smile. "Just tired, Dad." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "If you need to talk, I'm always here." Emily longed to spill everything. But Mr. Turner had always been the kind of man who carried his burdens quietly. He worked hard, never asked for help, and never let on when things were difficult. Tonight, she didn't want to weigh him down. Across the room, Ryan caught her eye. His expression was uncertain, almost worried. She crossed to him and slipped her hand into his. "Can we talk?" He led her out onto the balcony. City lights sparkled below them, distant and calm. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice low. She hesitated. She wanted to tell him the truth. But a voice deep inside whispered, "Don't ruin this. Don't make waves." "Your mom just suggested I think things through before the wedding," she said. He frowned. "She means well. She just wants everything to be perfect." He squeezed her hand. "We'll get through this. I promise." Emily smiled weakly. But her heart was racing. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay on her back in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. Margaret's ultimatum echoed in her mind, "Sign it, or there is no wedding." At dawn, Emily sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing last night's dress. The envelope Margaret had left sat on the nightstand, its presence heavy and loud. Inside was a thick legal document, page after page of clauses and disclaimers. A soft knock on the door startled her. It's me," her father's voice came through. She opened the door and found him holding a steaming mug of tea. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, settling beside her. She shook her head. "Dad, do you think people can change?" He looked thoughtful. "Only if they want to." "Why?" Emily held out the document. "Margaret wants me to sign this. If I don't, she'll stop the wedding." Mr. Turner read the pages silently, his face unreadable. Then, he handed it back to her. "What do you want?" "I want to marry Ryan, but signing this makes me feel like I have to prove I'm worthy. Like I'm not enough." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've always been enough. With or without wealth. You don't owe anyone proof of that." His voice was steady. "If you choose to walk away, I'll support you. If you choose to sign, I'll stand by you then, too." Emily wiped at her eyes, overwhelmed by his quiet strength. "Thanks, Dad." He smiled. "A contract doesn't define you. Only you can decide what your future looks like." Emily felt a spark of clarity. Later that morning, dressed and composed, she descended the staircase with the document in her hand. Margaret was already waiting in the study. "Well?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Emily took a breath. "I'll sign it." Margaret's expression relaxed. A wise decision. As Emily picked up the pen, Margaret leaned close, voice like ice. "This is for your own good. You'll thank me one day." Emily looked her in the eye. "I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of losing myself." She signed with a firm hand. Margaret tucked the document away. "Welcome to the family." But there was no warmth in her voice. Emily stepped into the hallway, the pen still warm in her fingers. Her father stood nearby, waiting. One look at her face, and he understood. "You signed it," he said gently, watching her carefully. She gave a small nod. It felt like the only choice. Mr. Turner offered a soft smile, the kind that said more than words ever could. "You did what you thought was right. That's what matters." But behind his eyes, something shifted, a quiet flicker of something Emily couldn't name. Not disappointment, not regret, something else. Confidence. The rest of the engagement celebration faded into a blur. Guests sipped champagne, exchanged polite small talk, and offered congratulations. Ryan tried to keep things light, as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed for Emily. She walked through the room with a sense of heaviness and clarity. She wasn't defeated. But she wasn't the same either. She caught a glimpse of her father slipping quietly out the door, unnoticed by the crowd. For the first time, Emily wondered what she didn't know about him, and what secrets he might be holding close. Change had begun. She just didn't know how deep it would run. The morning of the wedding came with pale sunlight and a storm of nerves in her chest. Emily woke long before her alarm. The guest room at the Harrove estate felt colder than usual, like the walls themselves were judging her. She climbed out of bed and pulled the curtains aside. Outside, the garden was bustling. White tents were being set up. The scent of roses mixed with damp earth filled the air. A knock on the door pulled her from the window. Came her father's voice, "Can I come in?" She smiled a little. "Of course." He stepped in, holding a small, wrapped box. His calm presence soothed her in ways no one else's ever could. "I brought you something," he said, setting it on the dresser. "It was your mother's." Emily opened the box slowly, revealing a simple gold necklace with a worn pendant. Her breath caught. Her mother had worn it every day before she passed. She ran her thumb along the chain, heart aching. "Thank you," she whispered. "I really wish she were here." Mr. Turner's eyes shone. "She'd be proud of you. No matter what happens today, remember who you are." Emily hugged him tight, his quiet strength anchoring her once again. An hour later, she stood in front of the mirror, dressed in her gown. It was elegant without being loud. It reflected her, not Margaret's expensive tastes. She'd refused every sequin dress Margaret had suggested and chosen one that felt like her. When Margaret swept into the room, her gaze immediately went to the necklace. "How quaint," she said, lips tight. "But I suppose it suits the occasion." Emily met her eyes. "It was my mother's. I wouldn't wear anything else." Margaret gave a short nod and clapped her hands. "Let's not keep everyone waiting." The ceremony, from the outside, was flawless. White flowers lined the aisle. A live quartet played softly. The guests looked like they'd walked out of fashion magazines. But Emily felt like she was part of a performance, an actress in a role written by someone else. Margaret stood nearby, always watching, whispering behind her fan to her friends. Ryan looked uneasy as he took Emily's hand at the altar. "You all right?" he whispered. She nodded. "I am if you are." He smiled, but his eyes kept flicking to where Margaret sat, expressionless in the front row. They said their vows. Exchanged rings. Applause rang out. They were husband and wife. Emily tried to feel joy. But the weight of everything, the prenup, the pressure, her father's quiet advice, pressed down hard. At the reception, Emily stepped aside for a moment, needing air. The lavish tent bustled with energy. Music played. Laughter echoed. Champagne glasses clinked. Margaret approached with two of her society friends, both dripping in jewels. "Well," Margaret said, raising her glass. "You've done it. Welcome to the family." One of the women smiled thinly. "How does it feel?" Emily stood tall. "I'm grateful. I know what it means to earn my place." Margaret's smile tightened. "Let's hope you keep earning it." The women chuckled as if at an inside joke. Emily clenched her jaw. Just then, her father appeared. Quiet, composed. "Ladies," he said, "mind if I steal my daughter for a moment?" The women stepped aside, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Mr. Turner led Emily to the edge of the dance floor. "You don't have to win anyone over here," he murmured. "Don't forget that." She squeezed his hand. "I know." He looked across the crowd at Margaret. "Her pride will bring her down one day. Don't let her rob you of who you are." For the first time all day, Emily felt herself smile, a real smile. But the night had more to throw at her. During the first dance, Margaret marched onto the floor to fix Emily's veil in front of everyone. She made remarks about Emily's modest upbringing, just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Each moment chipped away at Emily's patience. Later, she went looking for her father and found Margaret speaking to him with feigned civility. "You must be so proud," Margaret said. "Emily is, well, she's certainly determined." Mr. Turner met her gaze evenly. Emily's always known who she is. That's more valuable than any inheritance. Margaret blinked. Ambition must be guided, though. Don't you agree? He smiled slightly. Ambition without character leads nowhere. Margaret's expression tightened, but she didn't respond. Emily felt a surge of pride in her father. As the night wore on, Margaret found her again. This time near the gift table, her tone colder than before. You do understand, she said quietly, that your place in this family is conditional. The prenup wasn't only about money. It was about proving trust. Your loyalty. Emily stared at her, her voice steady. Trust is a two-way street. I've done everything you asked. I signed your papers. I married your son. I don't have anything left to prove. Margaret's eyes flashed. We'll see. She turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Emily standing alone among the presents. After the reception, Emily and Ryan moved into their new apartment, a wedding gift from the Harrow family. It was beautifully decorated, modern and elegant, but something about it felt sterile. Like walking through a showroom rather than a home. Ryan sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. I'm sorry about earlier, he muttered. My mom, she's complicated. Emily sat beside him, her voice calm but firm. You could have stood up to her. He shook his head. It's not that easy. She's always had control of everything. We're married now, Ryan, she said. It should be about us, not you, me, and your mother. He looked at her with tired eyes. Just give me time. I'll handle it. She wanted to believe him, but something inside her whispered he wouldn't. Or maybe he couldn't. The days that followed were tense. Margaret stayed close, even when she wasn't physically present. She called often, too often. She asked about their finances, questioned Emily's purchases, and once even sent a family accountant to assist with managing the household. Emily felt watched. Margaret dropped hints about everything, how Emily dressed, who she should spend time with, what she should do with her day. The pressure was constant, suffocating. Whenever Emily brought it up to Ryan, he seemed distant. Work was always demanding. He was always too tired or too distracted to really hear her. Then came the call that changed everything. One quiet afternoon, Emily answered the phone. It was her bank. Mrs. Hargrove, the woman said politely, we received a request for access to your personal account. Emily blinked. What? From who? There was a pause. Margaret Hargrove. Emily's stomach dropped. She's not authorized, Emily said quickly. She presented documents with your signature, the banker replied. Emily's hands shook as she ended the call. She stared at the statement. Several large withdrawals had been made. Money she hadn't touched. Her privacy, her control, gone. That night, Ryan came home late. Emily met him at the door, holding the bank statement like a weapon. We need to talk. He sighed. Can it wait? I had a rough day. No, it can't. Her voice was hard. She held up the papers. Your mother took money from my account. She forged my signature. Ryan frowned, confused. That can't be right. Look, she said, thrusting the statement into his hands. He scanned it, then sighed. I'm sure there's some explanation. Maybe she thought. Emily's voice cut in. Stop making excuses for her. She stole from me, Ryan. She crossed a line. He ran a hand through his hair. You're blowing this out of proportion. Her anger boiled over. No, I'm finally seeing the truth. She's manipulative. Controlling. And you let her be. She's my mother, he said weakly. She's your mother, but I'm your wife. Emily shouted. And you've never once stood up for me. Ryan looked away, silent. Emily's voice softened, but it cracked with pain. If you won't protect me, I'll protect myself. He reached for her, but she stepped back. I'm sorry, Em. I'll talk to her, he said. But the look in his eyes said otherwise. She didn't believe him. Not this time. That night, she called her father. Her voice trembled. She stole from me. I don't know what to do. Mr. Turner didn't react with anger. He listened. Quiet and steady, just like always. You have every right to defend yourself, Emily. No one, gets to take that from you. I don't want to walk away from my marriage, she whispered. You're not walking away, he said gently. You're fighting for your dignity. That's a battle worth choosing. Emily wiped her eyes. Thanks, Dad. There was a pause, then his voice returned with a quiet weight. People who think they can hurt others and never pay for it, they're usually the ones who fall the hardest. His words stayed with her long after the call ended. The next morning, Margaret appeared at the apartment, uninvited. Her arms were full of high-end shopping bags. I brought a few things to make this place feel less empty, she said breezily. Those curtains are all wrong. These are silk. Emily didn't even pretend to be polite. You had no right to touch my account. Margaret's smile vanished, replaced with cool defiance. You seemed overwhelmed. I thought I'd help. You forged my signature, Emily snapped. That's a crime. Margaret shrugged. You signed a prenup. No one will believe you. And if you try to make a scene, I'll make sure you regret it. Emily's hands balled into fists. You're not untouchable, Margaret. Sooner or later, someone's going to hold you accountable. Margaret laughed, brittle and sharp. Is that a threat? What are you going to do? Run crying to your father in that tiny apartment of his? Emily stepped forward. You forget, this is my home. Mine and Ryan's. Not yours. Margaret's expression darkened. Not for long, if you keep this up. With that, she stormed out, leaving Emily shaking with fury. That night, Emily tried one last time. She threatened me, Ryan, she said. She stole from me, and you still defend her. Ryan sat silently on the couch, his head in his hands. What do you want me to do? He whispered. She's my mother. You could stand up for your wife, Emily said, tears threatening to fall. But you never do. The silence between them stretched, heavy and endless. Emily slept in the guest room that night. For the first time since their wedding, she felt completely alone. A few days later, Margaret organized a lavish charity gala at the Harrove estate. A grand event, meant to remind everyone of her influence and wealth. She demanded Emily help organize the details, criticizing her choices every step of the way. On the morning of the gala, Mr. Turner called. I'll be there tonight, he said calmly. Remember, you don't have to face this alone. His words gave her the strength she needed. Emily placed her mother's necklace around her neck and took a breath. It was time to face the storm. That evening, the Harrove estate gleamed under strings of lights and the soft glow of chandeliers. Guests sipped champagne, laughed politely, and moved through the perfectly curated space. Margaret glided through the room like she owned it, tossing barbed compliments and smug glances. Emily did her best to keep her composure. After dinner, Margaret pulled her aside. I have a little surprise planned for tonight, she said with a smug smile. Try not to embarrass yourself, or us. Emily didn't respond. She scanned the room and found her father near the bar, standing alone, composed. You holding up? He asked. I wish Mom was here, Emily whispered. She'd be proud of you, he said, squeezing her hand. Storms don't last forever. His calm anchored her. She nodded, breathing deeply. Later that night, Margaret's plan began to unfold. She whispered to guests, stole glances at Emily, and prepared the room for something cruel. Emily overheard her laughing softly with a group of friends. "She tries so hard," Margaret said. "But bless her heart, she's just so, out of place." Emily walked away, fists clenched at her sides. Enough was enough. Ryan appeared beside her. She looked him in the eye. "If you care about me at all," she said firmly, "you'll stand by me tonight." He hesitated. I'll try, Emily." She nodded once, her voice steady. "No more letting anyone decide who I am." Across the room, her father caught her gaze and gave a single, knowing nod. Margaret was spinning her web, but Emily was ready. This night would change everything. Tension hung thick in the grand ballroom of the Harrove estate. Glittering chandeliers reflected off champagne flutes as music played softly in the background. Laughter floated through the air, but Emily stood on edge near the wall, her heart hammering in her chest. She could feel Margaret's eyes on her even without looking. Every moment was charged. And Emily knew something was coming. Then, like clockwork, her father stepped through the side entrance, dressed in his old navy blue suit. He didn't draw attention, but Emily noticed instantly. Relief rushed through her. He nodded once, the calm in his gaze anchoring her. Margaret strode into the center of the room, her voice loud and cheerful. "Good evening, everyone," she called, clinking her glass. "Thank you all for coming to support the Harrove Family Foundation. Your generosity makes everything we do possible." Polite applause echoed around the room. Margaret's smile widened. "Before we return to the festivities, I'd like to take a moment to recognize someone very special. My new daughter-in-law, Emily." Heads turned. Eyes locked onto Emily. She froze. "She's done her best to help tonight," Margaret continued. "Though she's still learning our ways, she's made an effort." A few guests chuckled. Emily's face burned. Margaret wasn't finished. "It's not always easy for someone with a simpler background to understand the duties that come with legacy and wealth, but we all learn as we go, don't we?" Another round of awkward laughter followed. Emily stood stiff, cheeks flaming. "And now, to truly welcome her into our family," Margaret said, "the Harrove Foundation will be donating $100,000 in Emily's name, so she can finally be part of something truly generous." Applause rippled again. But to Emily, it felt mocking. Margaret had weaponized her name, using it to stage a public insult wrapped in false praise. Then, a voice rang from the back of the room. Calm. Steady. Clear. "If I may say a few words. Mr. Turner." The room fell still. Margaret blinked, thrown. "Of course, Mr. Turner," she said with forced grace. He stepped forward slowly, all eyes turning to him. "Thank you for your generosity this evening," he began, voice even. "But I think there's something worth sharing, something more important than donations or appearances." He looked directly at Margaret. "You've spoken tonight about charity, about giving. But generosity isn't about grand gestures. It's about how we treat people when we think no one is watching. Especially those who can't give us anything in return." Margaret's expression hardened. "This isn't the place for a lecture." He held up a hand. "You're right. Let me be brief." He took a step closer. "For years, I've watched the way you've treated my daughter. You forced her to sign a one-sided agreement. You questioned her worth, belittled her, humiliated her, not just tonight, but again and again." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Margaret paled. Mr. Turner continued, his voice growing firmer. "You assumed she had nothing. That she brought nothing to this family. But what you didn't know is this: I'm the anonymous donor who's funded the Harrove Foundation's largest projects for the last decade. I made this gala possible." A stunned silence fell across the room. Margaret stood frozen, lips parted. The color drained from her face. I chose to keep my wealth private, Mr. Turner said. Because I wanted Emily to grow up understanding what matters: compassion, humility, and strength of character. Things you can't buy. He turned to Emily, pride beaming in his eyes. And she's lived up to every one of those values. She's the strongest person I know. Margaret finally found her voice, but it trembled. You can't prove any of that. I don't need to, he said with a small smile. The people who matter already believe it. The room buzzed with murmurs. Margaret's friends shifted uncomfortably. Some turned away. Others whispered behind their hands. Then Ryan stood. His voice cracked. Mom, how could you? Margaret stared at him, stunned. I did it for you, Ryan. I was protecting you. No, Ryan said, his voice rising. You were controlling us. And I let you. I let you hurt Emily, and I didn't stop you. He crossed the room to stand beside Emily. I should have defended you. I'm sorry. Emily looked at him, unsure whether to speak. But her father's presence steadied her. Margaret's voice dropped. I was trying to protect this family. Mr. Turner shook his head. Control is not love, Margaret. The silence that followed was loud. Margaret looked around, seeing her influence dissolve. Her allies avoided her eyes. Her empire was crumbling, not because of money, but because of truth. Mr. Turner turned back to his daughter. You owe no one an explanation. You're free to choose your own path. Emily took a breath. Her voice was soft, but unwavering. Thank you, Dad. I know who I am now. And I won't let anyone define my value again. Margaret looked like a woman stripped bare. For the first time, she had no response. Ryan stepped closer. Emily, can you forgive me? I know I failed you. Emily looked from him to her father, then back again. Her words were calm. I need time, Ryan. I have to decide what's best for me. For once, I need to come first. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I understand. The gala ended in awkward silence. Margaret's friends drifted away, avoiding her. Ryan tried to speak to Emily, but she stayed by her father's side. In the car on the way home, Emily leaned against Mr. Turner's shoulder. You never told me you were wealthy. He smiled softly. It was never about the money. I just wanted you to live by your own rules, not anyone else's. Emily nodded slowly, tears brimming in her eyes. You're proud of me, she whispered. He squeezed her hand. Always. You stayed true to yourself. That's everything. She looked out the window as the city lights blurred by. For the first time since entering the Harrove world, she felt whole, and free. The fallout came fast. By morning, news of Mr. Turner's quiet reveal had spread like wildfire across the Harrove social circles. The whispers weren't about Emily's simple upbringing anymore, they were about Margaret. About pride, control, and the arrogance of underestimating the wrong person. Margaret's phone rang all day, not with praise, but with awkward apologies and withdrawn invitations. The same people who once clung to her status now kept their distance. Emily watched it all unfold from her old bedroom, back in her father's modest apartment. And for the first time in weeks, she slept through the night. She woke to the comforting smell of coffee and the soft hum of her father singing in the kitchen, just like old times. At breakfast, he slid a folder across the table. I've started the paperwork to reverse the bank transfers Margaret made, he said. The lawyers say you'll have everything back soon. Emily opened the folder, heart lifting. Thank you. I didn't expect you to. He shook his head gently. You stood your ground. I just tied up the loose ends. A knock at the door interrupted their quiet moment. It was Ryan. He looked different now, smaller, humbler. He held his hands tightly in front of him, his wedding ring glinting under the hallway light. Emily let him in. He sat at the kitchen table, turning the ring between his fingers. "I'm sorry, Emily," he said quietly. "For all of it. I should have stood beside you from the beginning. I let my mother come between us. I was scared of her, but that's no excuse." He swallowed hard. "I want you back. I want to try again." Emily looked at him carefully, searching for the man she'd once trusted. "I loved you," she said. "But I can't go back to the woman I was before. I learned something important through all of this: I have to know my worth. And no one gets to decide it for me. Not even you." Ryan nodded slowly, eyes glossy. "If we ever have another chance, it'll be on your terms." She glanced at her father, who gave her a quiet nod of support. Turning back to Ryan, she spoke softly but firmly. "I need time. I need space. If you want to change, start with yourself. Show me you can stand up for you, before asking to stand with me." Ryan looked heartbroken, but something in him had shifted. Maybe for the better. He stood up, thanked Mr. Turner, and left. In the weeks that followed, Margaret's social reign unraveled. Her charity events lost their glamour. Invitations stopped arriving. People stopped returning her calls. Some called it karma. Others called it justice. Emily, meanwhile, found peace in the quiet rhythm of her old life. She returned to her job at the local library, where her presence wasn't judged, only appreciated. With encouragement from her father, and quiet financial backing, she started something new, a foundation focused on helping women protect their financial independence in marriage. She met with attorneys. She outlined workshops. She began writing a guidebook. Her story wasn't just one of betrayal. It had become a blueprint for others. At the foundation's first small event, Emily stood at the front of the room, facing a dozen women of different ages. Her father sat quietly in the back, beaming. "I'm not here tonight to tell you how to live your lives," she began. "But I want to tell you this: you deserve to be respected. In every room. In every relationship." She paused, voice steady. "You don't need money or status to be valuable. You just need to know who you are, and refuse to let anyone take that away." Afterward, a young woman approached her with tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I thought I was alone." Emily smiled, placing a hand on hers. "You're not. None of us are." One evening, as the sun melted into the skyline, Emily sat with her father on the apartment balcony. The city shimmered in the distance. "I'm proud of you," Mr. Turner said softly. "You turned all that pain into something meaningful." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. "You taught me not to give up on myself. I think Mom would have been proud too." He squeezed her hand. She would. Time passed. Emily's foundation began to grow. Letters poured in, stories from women who had been taken advantage of, ignored, or undervalued. Each one searching for strength, for hope. Emily read every letter. And she answered each one personally. Margaret, on the other hand, was left to face her reflection. No more influence. No more admiration. Just the silence of a reputation undone by her own pride. Even Ryan, now living separately, began rebuilding his life. No longer under Margaret's thumb, he started to explore who he truly was, away from the weight of expectation. Emily's story traveled beyond her circle. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was empowering. It became proof that dignity matters more than wealth. That courage leaves deeper footprints than power ever could. And most importantly, that no one, no matter how rich, loud, or influential, gets to define your value. Moral of the story: never hand someone the power to decide your worth. True strength lies not in how much you own, but in how fiercely you protect your voice, your identity, and your dignity.